There is a reason why the rich think differently. It is not merely because they have more money, it is because they operate by a different set of invisible laws. Laws that are not written in policy or passed down by government, but etched into the very discipline of their mind. And if you are not yet rich, if you find yourself grasping, striving, desiring without result, it is not because you are unlucky. It is because you are violating these laws. So listen to me well, and listen with the seriousness of a man who has grown tired of excuses. This is not a speech for those who seek entertainment. This is a warning, a challenge, a confrontation with the very habits and thought patterns that have kept you small. If you want to be rich, you must stop doing the things poor-minded people do today. Not next week, not after your circumstances change, not when motivation returns, but today. Because wealth is not a product of environment. It is the offspring of disciplined thought. And the first thing you must understand is this: poverty begins in the mind. Before a man is broke in his pocket, he is bankrupt in his habits. And before his habits decay, his thoughts were already undisciplined. There is no escaping this order. Every fortune begins with a mindset, and every failure begins with an emotional compromise. So I ask you now, are you leading your mind, or is your mind leading you? You cannot become rich while living by the emotional patterns of the average, because wealth is not attracted to chaos. It is not attracted to neediness, reactivity, victimhood, or distraction. Wealth is attracted to clarity, to power, to vision held in tension by unbreakable discipline. If you want to be rich, stop making decisions based on how you feel. Let me say that again. If you want to be rich, stop making decisions based on how you feel. Emotion is the currency of the poor. Reaction is their religion. They sleep when they're tired, they speak when they're angry, they buy when they're anxious, they quit when they're uncertain, and then they wonder why their lives are ruled by external conditions. A rich man decides based on vision, not feeling. He invests while others panic. He builds while others rest. He responds while others react. He speaks in truth while others beg for comfort. So the first thing you must stop doing is obeying your emotions. Because if you obey them, they will own you. And if they own you, you will never own anything. Emotional detachment is your first weapon. Detachment does not mean you don't feel. It means you do not allow what you feel to control what you do. It means you do not negotiate with your moods. It means you do not ask your feelings for permission to act. You lead them. Like a general leads an army, with firmness, with strategy, with absolute clarity. A rich man is not a man without emotion. He is a man who has learned to master it, because he understands the law of mental neutrality. Let me explain. The law of mental neutrality says, he who remains calm holds the advantage. The moment you become emotional, you surrender the high ground. You become reactive, impulsive, weak, and weakness always costs. In business, in negotiation, in relationships, in your health, in your time. When you are emotionally reactive, you pay a tax, not in dollars, but in lost opportunity, in wasted energy, in fractured momentum. So if you want to be rich, you must stop reacting. You must start responding. And the only way to respond with power is to train your mind to remain neutral under pressure. This is not theory. This is not motivational fluff. This is how wealth behaves. Next, if you want to be rich, stop seeking approval. Approval is a drug, and most people are addicted. They trade their direction for validation. They water down their voice to avoid offense. They betray their goals to gain applause, and then they wonder why their life feels small. You cannot build an empire if you need to be liked by the village. The rich do not seek permission. They make decisions that may offend. They take paths that look arrogant. They say no without apology. They are misunderstood, criticized, even hated until the results are undeniable. If you are still looking to be understood by everyone, you are not ready to be rich, because the journey to wealth is not a parade. It is a war of focus, a war that cannot be won by those who need constant emotional reassurance. Detach from the need to be liked, detach from the need to be explained, and detach from the idea that success requires agreement. It does not. It only requires execution. And execution requires the next principle, self-discipline. Let us be very clear. Wealth is not the result of one great decision. It is the result of thousands of boring, disciplined, repeated actions carried out long after the emotions have faded. The poor live by feelings, the rich live by standards. And standards are not born in comfort, they are forged in solitude. They are born the moment you say to yourself, I will never again betray my future for the sake of temporary emotion. Of discipline means you do what must be done when it must be done, whether or not you feel like doing it. You wake early, not because it feels good, but because your mission demands it. You train your body not because you're in the mood, but because energy is required to command the battlefield of life. You finish what you start not because it's easy, but because it builds the muscle of follow-through, and follow-through is what separates the rich from the talkers. There is no wealth without discipline. None. Not lasting wealth, not meaningful wealth, not spiritual wealth, not intellectual wealth, only fantasy, only inconsistency. Only scattered motion with no foundation. If you want to be rich, stop making decisions like a child. Stop chasing comfort. Stop needing everything to be easy. Start demanding results. Start honoring your word. Start doing exactly what you said you would do, even if the excitement is gone, even if no one is watching, even if you're tired. Because every time you follow through, you reinforce a new identity, that of the leader, the commander, the builder, the sovereign man who needs nothing but the quiet voice of purpose within him. You must understand this. If you continue to live as if discipline is a punishment, you will forever remain poor. Because wealth does not respond to dreams, it responds to structure. You can think positive thoughts all day long. You can write affirmations, visualize checks in the mail, and chant mantras of abundance, but if your habits contradict your vision will die. You are not rewarded for what you intend. You are rewarded for what you consistently execute. Execution, my friend, is the religion of the rich. So stop treating your promises to yourself like suggestions. Stop skipping the gym. Stop delaying the work. Stop betraying your future to please your feelings. Every time you do that, you weaken the muscle that builds empires, inner authority. What is inner authority? It is the voice inside you that decides, that commands, that acts regardless of external praise or inner resistance. It is the force that says, I do what I said I would do, not because it feels good, but because I said it. That voice is buried under years of emotional indulgence. You must dig it out. You must resurrect it. You must train it until it is louder than fear, stronger than fatigue, and more consistent than your cravings. This is the true work, and it begins with a single commitment to stop lying to yourself. Stop saying you want to be rich and then wasting hours on meaningless distraction. Stop saying you want freedom and then refusing to build the discipline that makes freedom possible. Stop pretending you're serious when your actions reek of compromise. Because here is the law. You will never rise above the standard you accept in silence. Not the standard you preach, not the standard you believe in, the standard you practice when no one is watching. And the world will pay you not what you want, but what you command through character. Character is currency. And most men are spiritually bankrupt. They say one thing, feel another, do neither. But the rich, the truly rich, operate with ruthless consistency. They speak less, they do more. They build silently. They endure boredom. They repeat the basics. And when adversity strikes, they do not flinch. This is not luck. This is alignment. And alignment is only possible when emotion is governed, not worshipped. If you want to be rich, stop emotionalizing every experience. Stop needing everything to be perfect before you act. Stop interpreting every delay as failure, every failure as rejection, every rejection as proof of your inadequacy. Life is not personal. Life is mathematical. You apply the principle, you endure the pressure, you refine the process, you multiply the result. Emotion clouds the math. It makes you overreact. It makes you second guess. It makes you feel attacked when you're simply being tested. You must become the man who moves forward while others are still wondering how they feel about the setback. You must build the muscle of immediate correction. You failed? Adjust. You were rejected? Learn. You made a mistake? Fix it. You were doubted? Improve. New emotion. Just observation. Calculation Action. This is how the rich move precisely, not dramatically. And precision is only possible through accurate thinking. Let me teach you this ancient law. Your thinking is either a tool or a trap. If you do not discipline it, it will work against you. Accurate thinking is the rarest skill in the world today. Most people do not think, they react, they assume, they absorb opinion and call it truth. They feel something and assume it must be fact. But the rich, the mentally rich, train themselves to separate fact from emotion. They ask, is this true? Do I have proof? Is this belief helping me build or is it keeping me small? They do not accept fear at face value. They investigate it. They do not let emotion write the script of their life. They edit it ruthlessly. Because the man who disciplines his thinking disciplines his destiny. So stop believing every thought you have. Start testing it. Stop adopting every doubt. Start challenging it. Stop indulging every mental excuse. Start replacing it. You say you're not consistent? Then say this, I was not consistent, but I am now. You say you don't believe in yourself? Then say this, I didn't, but I am choosing to trust the version of me that executes, even if I don't feel ready. Because belief is not something you wait for. Belief is something you build. And how do you build belief? With auto-suggestion. Repeat what you choose to become until your subconscious accepts it as law. Write it, speak it, think it, envision it. Daily, relentlessly, without excuse. Say, I am the master of my mind. I lead my emotions, they do not lead me. My standards are non-negotiable. I act with discipline, not permission. My future bends to my decisions, not my circumstances. You must become fanatical about feeding your mind new commands. Not when you feel like it, but especially when you don't. Because repetition is stronger than emotion. And what you repeat, good or bad, becomes your life. So stop repeating weakness. Stop affirming your struggle. Stop reinforcing the idea that you are stuck, unworthy, or incapable. And start repeating the truth. You can become anything, but only if you master your inner world. Because wealth is an inside job. It begins with silence. It begins with decision. It begins with detachment from every thought, feeling, or excuse that does not serve your ascent. And it continues day by day, choice by choice, command by command, until your reality becomes the reflection of your discipline. That is the price. That is the work. That is the law. And you must decide now if you are willing to pay it. Because if you are, there is nothing that can stop you. Not time, not talent, not background, not betrayal, not rejection. Only one thing can stop you, yourself. And once you decide to stop betraying your standards, to stop obeying your emotions, to stop worshiping your limitations, then nothing will own you again. Because you will own yourself. And that man, the one who owns his mind, will own everything else in due time. If you still tolerate inconsistency, then understand this. You are not serious, you are only interested. And interest will never make you rich. Only conviction will. Conviction is what gets a man up before the sun, not once, but daily. Conviction is what keeps his word, even after emotion has fled. Conviction is what pushes past tiredness, loneliness, boredom, and self-doubt, because the mission is greater than the mood. Now listen, this may be the most important thing I will say to you. The greatest trap of the poor is comfort. They seek it. They chase it. They arrange their life around it. They build routines designed to avoid discomfort rather than conquer it. And what is the result? They become skilled in avoidance and amateurs in execution, masters of excuse, experts in procrastination, architects of their own delay. The rich, on the other hand, the truly rich in mind and result, are not comfortable. They are committed. And commitment means pain. Yes, pain. Not forever, but enough to test your sincerity. You see, life will ask you a question every single day. Do you mean it? You say you want to be rich, do you mean it? You say you want freedom, do you mean it? You say you're done being broke, average reactive, do you mean it? Because if you mean it, you will endure. You will bleed if necessary. You will outlast the season of difficulty without surrendering the dream. You won't lower the standard. You'll raise your effort. You won't blame the process. You'll tighten your focus. You won't envy others. You'll elevate your self-discipline. That is what it means to mean it. But if you fold under pressure, then you never meant it. You only wanted it when it was easy. The rich are built in difficulty, because difficulty is a mirror. It shows you who you really are. And the man who runs from that mirror will never build anything worth calling his own. So stop running. Stand there, in the fire, in the silence, in the boring repetition, in the days where no one sees you, in the hours where no one claps, in the seasons where it seems like nothing is working, and keep moving anyway, because that's what winners do. And the more you do that, the more something incredible happens. You stop needing motivation. You stop looking for signs. You stop asking for encouragement. Why? Because you have become the source. You no longer need energy, you generate it. You no longer need validation, you validate yourself through action. You no longer need the crowd, you walk alone with certainty, and the world adjusts. This is the turning point. This is where the man who once reacted becomes the man who leads. This is where noise becomes clarity, where emotion becomes discipline, where scarcity becomes power. And it all begins with this internal shift. You stop reacting to the world and you start creating it. Let me be blunt. Most men live as slaves to their surroundings. Their environment shapes their thoughts. Their thoughts shape their moods. Their moods shape their behavior. Their behavior shapes their results, and they wonder why nothing changes. But the rich invert that. They shape their thoughts. Their thoughts command their behavior. Their behavior shifts the environment. And suddenly, they're not reacting to life, they're designing it. It's called mental inversion, and it's how empires are built. It's how the invisible becomes visible. It's how the inner man becomes the outer result. But this only happens if you obey one rule. Stop negotiating with your weakness. You know the voice. Just 5 more minutes. You can skip today. You deserve a break. No one will notice. It's always whispering. And every time you listen to it, you make it stronger. But every time you deny it, you build something better, a new identity. Because every action reinforces identity, and identity creates consistency. And consistency creates momentum. And momentum, unstoppable momentum, is the only thing that makes impossible goals inevitable. So do not wait for momentum. Create it with repetition. Repetition is the root of greatness. And most people are allergic to it. They crave novelty. They chase variety. They get bored with the process. But the rich, they fall in love with mastery. They fall in love with doing it again, and again, and again. Not because it's exciting, but because it works. While others are busy switching plans, chasing trends, starting and stopping, the rich are compounding effort. They understand something the weak never will. It's not about how you feel on day 1. It's about who you become on day 1,000. That's the difference. That's why wealth feels like magic to the untrained. But it is not magic. It is principle, enforced by a mind trained to obey the mission, not the mood. This is what I want you to understand above all else. You are not stuck. You are undisciplined. And discipline is a choice. Right now. Not when you feel ready. Not after your circumstances improve. Not when you've read one more book, watched one more video, listened to one more podcast. Now, because nothing will change until you do. Not your income, not your body, not your business, not your relationships. Everything changes when you start acting like a man who is already rich inside. So start now. Speak with power. Walk with focus. Think with clarity. Decide without hesitation. Act without fear. Rest only with purpose. And become the man the world can no longer ignore, not because he yells, but because he executes with such silent intensity that results speak louder than any voice. You want to be rich? Stop doing what poor men do. Stop chasing dopamine. Stop needing applause. Stop reacting. Stop lying to yourself. Stop talking about your goals more than you act on them. Start building rhythm. Start confronting truth. Start disciplining thought. Start detaching from emotion. Start walking like a man who knows where he is going. And one day, sooner than you think, the world will wonder how you did it. But you'll know. You built it. You earned it. You didn't wait. You didn't ask. You didn't react. You ruled. And that is the only way a man ever becomes truly rich. There is a law older than time itself. He who masters his inner world becomes master of all he surveys. But he who fails to govern himself will be governed by distraction, by fear, by lesser men with greater focus. So I ask you now, are you mastering your thoughts, or are you merely entertaining them? Because thoughts are not harmless. They are blueprints. Every belief you hold becomes a pattern you live. Every internal excuse becomes an external barrier. And every lie you whisper to avoid responsibility becomes the architecture of your own limitation. If you want to be rich, you must stop tolerating weak thinking. You must become savage in your honesty, precise in your self-assessment, unforgiving toward the mental patterns that waste your life. You must become a mental architect, ruthless with your structure, disciplined with your focus, intolerant of internal chaos. This is where most men fail. They organize their rooms, they organize their calendars, but their minds are a battlefield of contradiction. They believe they're worthy, but they repeat thoughts of inadequacy. They believe they're committed, but they continue to compromise. They believe they're destined for more, but they still think like slaves to their emotions. So let me give you the truth. Until your thoughts align with your destiny, you will sabotage everything you touch. It's not a lack of opportunity, it's a lack of alignment. And alignment is born the moment you stop treating your mind like a suggestion box and start treating it like a command center. What do I mean? I mean, you stop waiting to feel ready. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop asking questions like, what if it doesn't work? And start asking, what must I become so it cannot fail? Because wealth is not about what you do once. It's about who you become so thoroughly that success becomes inevitable. And who must you become? A man who cannot be shaken. A man who wakes when it's hard. A man who acts when it's boring. A man who leads when it's silent. A man who keeps moving forward even when fear, fatigue, and failure scream at him to quit. That man is not built in comfort. He is built in decision. He is built in the repetition of standards that refuse to bend. So set your standard and do not break it. Not for tiredness, not for temptation, not for approval. Because every time you hold the standard, you get stronger. And every time you lower it, you teach your subconscious that your word means nothing. You become untrustworthy to yourself. And a man who cannot trust himself will never achieve greatness. Trust is built through evidence. You must build that evidence through daily victory, micro victories, waking when you said you would, finishing what you start, saying no to things that weaken your discipline, saying yes to discomfort that strengthens your character. These are the bricks of wealth. And yes, it is uncomfortable, because discipline is war against the lesser version of you. But that is a war you must win, daily, silently, repeatedly. Because the reward is not just money. It is not even success. It is becoming untouchable by the forces that destroy average men. Laziness, indecision, emotional chaos, weakness of will. Let me give you a truth that will free you if you accept it. The man who does not flinch in the face of difficulty will eventually own everything that others avoided. Because most people run from the very things that would make them rich. They avoid discipline. They avoid silence. They avoid failure. They avoid solitude. But the rich, those who own their results, run toward these things. They understand that discomfort is not an obstacle. It is a door. And that door is locked to the man who thinks like a victim. If you are still looking for shortcuts, you are still thinking like the poor. Because shortcuts always cost more than they promise. They rob you of strength. They dull your instincts. They teach you dependence. And dependence is poverty, no matter how much money you make. So choose now. Do you want to look rich, or do you want to become rich? Because to become rich, you must stop doing what the world praises and start doing what the world avoids. Think of the habits you carry. How often do you scroll instead of study? How often do you react instead of plan? How often do you complain instead of correct? How often do you consume instead of create? Every one of those is a seed, and seeds do not lie. They only grow what you plant. So if you want to change your harvest, change your seed. Plan discipline, plan silence, plan focus, Plan émotionnel contrôle, plan personnel responsibility. And you will harvest a life so powerful that people will assume you were lucky. Let them assume. Let them whisper. Let them misunderstand. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be undeniable. And that is only possible if you become the kind of man who keeps his back straight in a room full of compromise. The kind of man who speaks with restraint and walks with command. The kind of man who no longer needs to be told what to do because his own standard is higher than any boss could demand. That is the man who becomes rich not just in bank accounts, but in mind, in peace, in power. So stop chasing tricks. Stop chasing trends. Stop chasing permission. And start becoming the rarest kind of man alive. The one who rules himself. Because that man does not wait for opportunity. He creates it. He does not hope for luck. He demands results. He does not pray for clarity. He trains his thinking until clarity becomes his daily state. That man you must emerge now. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. No, because the clock is ticking. And every moment you spend indulging the weaker self, the disciplined version of you falls further behind. So act, not emotionally, strategically, intentionally, relentlessly. Because everything you want already exists. It is only waiting for you to become the man who belongs there. You must understand something most people will never accept. Wealth is not something you pursue, it is something you attract by the strength of who you become. It is not a finish line. It is a mirror, a reflection of your internal standards, your internal order, your internal obedience to discipline over emotion. You cannot have a rich life with a poor identity. You cannot experience outer abundance while tolerating inner disorder. So if you are still complaining, you are still poor in mind. If you are still blaming, you are still weak in spirit. If you are still justifying your inconsistency, you are still unfit to lead yourself, let alone lead a business, a team, a family, a mission. And the only cure for this is self-confrontation. You must confront the habits that weaken you. You must confront the thoughts that limit you. You must confront the stories you repeat to protect your comfort. Because comfort does not make men rich. Comfort makes men invisible. And if you want to become unshakable, unstoppable, undeniable, you must make a permanent decision to outgrow everything that once felt safe. That means letting go of people who distract you. That means deleting patterns that drain you. That means saying goodbye to the version of you that always needed more time, more motivation, more validation. The rich do not ask for more time. They create more by using what others waste. The rich do not wait to feel ready. They move with incomplete certainty, refining their plan through action. The rich do not beg for peace. They manufacture it through clarity of intention and control of focus. So, if you are still waiting for the right moment, wake up. There is no right moment. There is only the man who is ready in every moment because he has trained for it. And that training does not happen in public. It happens in the shadows. It happens in the moments no one sees. It happens when you choose to rise instead of sleep, when you study instead of scroll, when you execute instead of overthink, when you silence the noise, deny the craving, ignore the fear, and act anyway. That's where the foundation is laid. Because the foundation of wealth is always invisible, and the weak never see it. They only see the mansion and think it was built overnight. But the disciplined man knows. He knows it was paid for in repetitions. Repetitions of action. Repetitions of restraint. Repetitions of vision repeated so often it rewired the brain and shaped the very identity of the man speaking it. Let me ask you something. Are you rehearsing your future or are you recycling your past? Because if you want to be rich, you must obsess over your future identity. You must visualize him, speak like him, move like him, think like him. You must ask before every decision, would the future me do this? Would he skip his morning routine? Would he scroll for hours? Would he gossip? Would he procrastinate? Would he shrink his voice to make the weak feel comfortable? If not, neither can you. This is not just about doing what's right, it's about becoming who is required. So begin to speak as the future version of you speaks, with calm, with clarity, with conviction. Begin to walk like him, with focus, with purpose, with direction. Begin to lead like him, not for approval, but from principle. Because the world follows the man who leads himself. Now let us speak of your greatest enemy, emotional indulgence. You must kill it. You must kill the habit of acting from anxiety, quitting from insecurity, speaking from offense, or deciding from fatigue. Emotions are weather, but your actions must be the climate, unshaken, consistent, governed by vision. The rich are not robots, but they are disciplined. And discipline means this: you feel it, but you don't feed it. You observe the emotion, but you don't obey it. You acknowledge the fear, but you move forward anyway. That is maturity, that is power, that is wealth. And it leads us to the next law. The man who governs his mind is no longer subject to the world. He is not thrown off by criticism. He is not seduced by flattery. He is not defeated by rejection. He is not swayed by temptation. He has trained himself to be the same man in the dark as he is in the light. And that is the only way to become rich in a world designed to make you poor in spirit. Because everything around you is engineered to break your focus. Everything around you is designed to keep you reactive. The news, the algorithms, the culture of outrage, the addiction to speed, they want your mind. They want your time. They want your attention, because your attention is the currency of this modern war. And if you don't defend it, you will lose it, quietly, slowly, without realizing it, until one day you wake up broke, not just financially, but mentally. So become militant about your focus. Protect your attention like your future depends on it, because it does. Eliminate what weakens your mind. Limit what enters your mental diet. Refuse to consume what dulls your thinking or inflames your emotion, and begin to design your environment for domination. That means your space, your schedule, your circle. Everything in your environment must answer one question: does this support the man I am becoming? If the answer is no, eliminate it. Do not hesitate. Do not justify it. If it does not serve your mission, it is a threat to your mission. Because wealth is not built in inspiration, it is built in design. You must design your day like a tactician. Design your thinking like a philosopher. Design your identity like a king. And the first blueprint is written not on paper, but in practice. Practice being undistracted. Practice finishing what you start. Practice saying no to the easy thing. Practice acting on vision, not emotion. Practice self-possession. And over time, you will notice a shift, a silence, a focus, a presence. You will no longer be frantic. You will no longer need permission. You will no longer be pulled by chaos, because you have become rare, because you have become disciplined, because you have stopped doing what weak men do and started doing what rich men always have. If you want to be rich, stop doing what poor men do. Stop waiting. Stop wishing. Stop asking your emotions for permission. The man who builds wealth is not ruled by how he feels. He is ruled by principle, purpose, and discipline. He does not wait for the right mood. He acts, regardless of how the moment feels. The poor man reacts. The rich man responds. The poor man waits for motivation. The rich man moves with method. If you live by your feelings, you forfeit your future. But if you live by discipline, there is nothing this world can withhold from you. The first thing to stop doing is obeying your emotions. Every time you let comfort dictate your decisions, you betray your potential. Wealth does not respond to feeling it, responds to clarity. So what must you become? A man who does not flinch. A man who holds the line. A man who shows up when it's boring, when it's hard, when no one claps. That man becomes dangerous. That man becomes undeniable. That man becomes rich. Next, stop chasing approval. Approval is the drug of the poor. They adjust their dreams to fit public opinion. They delay their rise to avoid being misunderstood. But wealth does not bend to public validation. It bows to private conviction. You do not get rich by being liked. You get rich by becoming consistent, so consistent that even your silence becomes louder than their noise. Stop lying to yourself. You don't need more time. You need more focus. You don't need more luck. You need more execution. You don't need more knowledge. You need more discipline. Success is not about how much you know, it's about how much you apply without excuse. Every excuse you allow today is a bill your future self will pay. So stop indulging weakness. Stop needing to be comfortable. Stop looking for balance when what you need is structure. The rich don't build lives around feelings. They build systems, rituals, non-negotiables. They eat boredom. They sleep with repetition. They rise with clarity. And they move with one thought. I said I would, so I did. That's it. That's the root of confidence. That's the essence of wealth. Discipline over emotion. Execution over explanation. Repetition over novelty. While the poor seek dopamine, the rich seek dominance, not over others, but over themselves. The rich man doesn't need motivation. He has identity. His habits are identity. His speech is deliberate. His posture is purpose. He doesn't chase peace, he builds it with stillness. He doesn't avoid pain, he uses it to sharpen his standard. He doesn't entertain distraction, he eradicates it like a threat. Because it is a threat. Every distraction is a thief of wealth, and you cannot be passive with thieves. You must defend your time like a fortress. You must protect your mental environment like a general. You must audit your habits like your life depends on it, because it does. If you want to be rich, stop trying to feel good all the time. Start doing the right thing, especially when you don't feel like it. That's discipline. That's maturity. That's the formula. And it works in every arena: business, relationships, fitness, leadership, finances. Feelings are fleeting, but standards are eternal. And if your results are weak, it's because your standards are weak. So raise them. Raise them so high that average cannot breathe around you. Raise them so high that even on your worst day, you still outperform most people's best. You do that by killing inconsistency. You do that by removing your addiction to emotion. You do that by becoming obsessed with mastery, not motivation. Most people rehearse their struggle. The rich rehearse their future. The poor ask, "What if I fail?" The rich ask, "What must I become so I cannot?" That is accurate thinking. That is how you begin to rewire the mind. Repetition is greater than inspiration. What you do daily becomes who you are. So feed your mind what it needs, not what it craves. Affirm the man you are becoming. Write it, speak it, act on it before you feel like it. Say, I lead my mind. I don't wait. I don't flinch. I don't need permission. I build wealth because I build discipline. Do this until your subconscious bends. It will. It has no choice. Because the brain does not follow what is true. It follows what is repeated. And if you repeat weakness, you'll live in it. But if you repeat strength, it becomes the only language you know. So speak strength. Think power. Act with precision. And never again surrender your day to anything beneath your mission. There is no more time for emotional intoxication. No more space for half effort. No more tolerance for delay. You know what to do. You know who you could be. Now it's time to become. Start now. Start before you're ready. Start while you're still doubting. But never stop. Because the man who leads himself rules the world. And the world is ready to bow if you are finally ready to rise.